Welcome to this week of Unleash Yourself. And this week we're going to talk about the benefits of journaling. Now, when I talk about journaling, I'm not talking about Dear Diary. I'm not talking about journaling how your day went. I'm literally talking about using journal as a tool to help you on your journey. So, journaling can help you with emotional release. It can help you with mental clarity, decision making, stress reduction, healing from traumas. It can help to strengthen a spiritual connection. Examples of this would be if you find that you're in a heightened emotional space, you can use journaling to get the emotions out of the body, out of the brain, and which will lead you to mental clarity. It'll give you, the ability to work through the emotions and to become, clear on what is actually happening and what has caused the emotional turbulence to happen. So that is great. The other thing it can do is it can help us to reduce stress and anxiety. So if we write down the things that are bothering us, then it allows us to work through them. It allows us to do pros and cons and to decide, what can I do with the stress? How do I reduce it? What are the things that are leading to the stress? And so it gives us the ability to be open and honest and true with ourselves. And by putting it down on paper, it allows us access into our subconscious mind. When we just stay in our head and we stay in the conscious portion of our head and we try to work through things on a mental level, it's really hard to get into the subconscious, which is really where we learn to deep dive into the psyche. It is when we get past the conscious and into the subconscious that we can actually start to reprogram ourselves to find out, how do I go from point A to point B? It's on the subconscious level, not on the conscious level. And so journaling helps us to access that. The other thing it does is it allows us to heal from trauma. Now, what do I mean by this? So, in order to heal from trauma, we have to acknowledge that the trauma happened. And so just putting it down in writing and saying, I've experienced ABC, allows us to say, okay, I'm actually going to acknowledge that I have experienced this trauma in my life. Then once we've acknowledged it, we can accept it and say, okay, I've acknowledged it and I've accepted that it happened. It doesn't mean you're condoning the actions. It doesn't mean that you're condoning, the behavior. It just means that you are acknowledging it for what it is and you're accepting that these things happen to you and that oftentimes these things happened and it was outside of your control. There was absolutely nothing you could do. That trauma happened and there's nothing that you could have done differently that would have given you a different outcome. So you're just acknowledging it and you're accepting it. Once you can get through those two phases, which, believe it or not, are really hard phases to get through, then you can actually start the hard work of healing those traumas. And it is through healing those traumas that you learn where those traumas have underlined all of these different decision makings that you have made throughout your life since that trauma happened, right? So trauma happens, it creates a fragmentation within your mind. It creates a fragmentation within your emotions, and then everything gets fragmented, kind of like if you were to drop a mirror and it shatters into all these pieces. That's what trauma does to you. It shatters things and stores it into different bits and pieces. And so healing of trauma is so difficult because it fragments things. And when we get triggered, sometimes we can be triggered, say, by a smell of something. We don't even know why the smell is trigger in us because it is linked to some trauma that is fragmented into pieces. And so journaling will help us to acknowledge, accept, and then learn how to put the fragmented pieces back together in order for us to actually acknowledge why we're triggered, say, by the certain smell, or why we're triggered by the certain song, or we're triggered by, anything. So that's another aspect of journaling and how it can be used as a tool to help us to heal. It gives our inner child a voice and gives us access to our subconscious. And then it also gives us a deeper spiritual connection to self. As we acknowledge and work through our traumas, and as we, work through the anxiety and the stress and the emotions, it gives us the ability to become vulnerable with ourselves. When we become vulnerable with ourselves, we start to trust ourselves. A lot of times we have been our own worst enemy. We have not looked out for ourselves. We don't do the proper self-care. We have proven to ourselves that we don't have our best interest and we don't have our own back, right? How many times have we done something that we really didn't want to do, that we knew we were emotionally spent and didn't have the ability to do, but we did it anyways? So we've proven to ourselves that, we're not going to have our own back and we're not actually going to do the necessary healing. And so we need to develop a connection with ourselves where we prove to ourselves that we're going to deep dive, that we're going to have our own back, that we're going to make decisions based on our well-being, based on our best interest. And in order for us to do that, journaling is instrumental in proving to ourselves that we're ready and willing and able to do the hard work, to deep dive into our psyche, and we're going to acknowledge and we're going to accept. Now, the more you acknowledge and the more you accept, the more your subconscious will come to the surface. And this is where the true healing starts. It is getting below the surface. But in order to get there, you have to build that relationship with self where your subconscious trusts you to actually deep dive and do the healing required for you to get there. And so this is the benefits of journaling. It allows you access into who you are at your core. It helps you to become your true, authentic self. Now, I know sometimes people are of the opinion, I don't want to journal. I don't want to put my thoughts on paper. What if somebody reads it? What if somebody tries to use my journal against me? To this, I've always had the opinion, this is who I am at my core. And if somebody wants to use who I am at my core against me, then they can totally try to. But I'm willing to be vulnerable and share my experiences with anybody that asks me. And so if somebody were to read my journal, the journal that I use when I deep dive into my psyche and, do the necessary work and healing that everybody needs to do, then I'm like, have at it. If you honestly think that you can use my life against me, right? And I think that's what it comes down to. It's my life, my experiences, my situations, my journey. And so people can't use your journey against you. And if they try to, they just make themselves look foolish. So that's kind of my stake on, people that are afraid to do the hard work. It's not, don't worry about what other people may think about you. If you're worried about what other people are thinking about you, then you're not in a place, because you're not going to have your own back. And therefore, your subconscious isn't even going to release to you what you actually need to work on, because you're more worried about upholding a fake image. And so I know that that's a little harsh. But that's reality for how the subconscious works. If you're more afraid of other people reading your innermost thoughts and feelings, then your subconscious will not release the information that you truly need to work on. And so maybe that is something that you should start with your journaling. Why am I afraid for people to know who I am at my core? And that is a good place to start. So, as always, if you have questions or concerns or you need clarity, please reach out. And otherwise, I am wishing you the very best of weeks, and I'm looking forward to seeing you very, very soon.